Hello and welcome to A Cook Back in Time. One of the great British traditions dear to so many people's hearts is time spent in the pub with real ale and delicious pub grub. In reality, real ale is in decline and pub grub very often leaves a lot to be desired. Unless you like your chicken in a basket rather than on a plate, your shepherd's pie out of the freezer and soggy chips. But it wasn't always like that. Today on Cook Back in Time, we're going to visit the ancient town of Rye, and in particular the old Mermaid Inn, where our expert chef Mark Griffin's going to serve up some authentic medieval pub fare. Pomme dorée, game bird agreduse and wafers with a figgy and ginger sauce. As well as all that, ghost hunter Christopher Charles-Reimald is going to try and literally put us in touch with the past by looking for a serving girl who died over 300 years ago. 1,000 years ago, the ancient town of Rye in East Sussex was owned by the French. The famous King Canute, who was actually Danish, granted it away by charter to the monks in Normandy. It remained under their dominance until the time of Henry III, who negotiated its return as a matter of national security, after which it soon became a royal borough, a thriving market town and a seaport with considerable overseas trade. Such was the wealth and distinction of the town by the late 13th century that the portsmen deemed to call themselves barons and would only accept the justice of the king's court. The inns of the town bustled with rich merchants, tradesmen and travellers. Affluence for Rye came to a rather abrupt end. Initially, the sea swept away a large part of the town in 1375. Then it came under constant bombardment from French warships, whose crews burnt and sacked the town in 1377. Although rebuilt almost immediately, Rye was never again to retain its early status. The harbour began to silt up, and the town became more of a fishing village remote on the edge of the Romney Marshes. In many ways, progress passed it by. It remained an isolated medieval town left to its own devices, which is one of the reasons why in the 18th century it became the centre of a roaring smuggling trade. The theologian and founder of the Wesleyan chapel, John Wesley, visited the town in 1773 and noted in his diary, "I found the people willing to hear the good word at Rye, but will not part with that accursed thing, smuggling." Immortalised by Dr. Syn, the fictional character of writer Russ Thorndike, the smugglers of Rye were in fact a notorious bunch of cutthroats and murderers, typified by the Hawkhurst gang, whose favourite haunt was here, the Mermaid Inn. Judith, this inn is absolutely fabulous. How old is it?
The inn itself was originally built in 1156. The cellars, which are underneath us here, date back to Norman times with the original vaulting. The hotel itself was then burnt down in 1377 by the French and rebuilt in 1420.
The whole of Rye is known for smuggling. I should think underneath Rye, is it just a maze of tunnels, smuggling tunnels?
Once upon a time, but now obviously for security reasons they've been filled in. The other famous thing in Rye to do with smuggling was the lofts. All the attics used to run together. So they were running beneath the buildings and above the buildings.
But why did the smuggling go on?
Taxis at the time were so expensive, and here itself was a very easy place for smugglers to get to and fro from the coast, to smuggle things from France, because at the bottom of Mermaid Street the sea was very deep and the big galleons used to come here.
We're sitting in the lounge, but I did notice it was called Dr. Syn's.
This is called Dr. Syn's Lounge, and this used to be the old chapel. Above us, in Dr. Syn's bedchamber, there's a secret passage where the Catholics actually used to hide, and they would come and pray in here before going across to France to safety.
As the building is so old, do you have any ghosts?
5, we believe. There appear to be 3 ladies and 2 men. And the most common seen figure is a lady in white walking the corridors upstairs.
Would you mind, Judith, if we brought in a ghost investigator to have a look around and sort of...
I'd be intrigued. I'd love to know.
Good. And the other thing is, of course, because it's 1420 and we're looking at medieval cookery, can we have the kitchens for a few hours?
Yes, that's no problem at all.
Thank you. Well, Mark Griffin, you're our medieval cook for the day.
Indeed.
In the right gear. What are you going to cook for us today?
Well, it's a series of dishes. The first one is actually the most difficult. It's called pomme dorée, which is it's sort of an anglicised French dish. It actually translates into golden apples, but I'm not using apples, I'm using pork.
Well, that's what I thought.
And we're going to make little tiny pork balls. What I'm going to do now, I've chopped that up nice and fine. I'm going to mix this, first of all. I'm going to add in something to make it a little bit sweeter. So we have some currants. Just chop those up a little bit, doesn't need to be too much. Just a few. We're going to add in a little bit of cumin. And don't forget, all these spices were available to medieval cook because we'd had the Crusades by now, so a lot of Arabic flavours are coming in. A little bit of powdered coriander as well. Very important, we've got some ground pepper. Always ground your pepper up nice and fresh, don't use powdered. After that, a little bit of egg yolk. Now it's going to bind it all together, so we'll put that in. Mix it up, bind it all together, so it holds together quite nicely.
So what's the next step?
Okay, now that's well and truly mixed. We'll put onto the chopping board. And I'm going to make some little tiny round balls. Apples, in fact. The whole point of this dish is to transform the pork into something that it isn't. So I've now got those balls. I'm going to put a bit of flour on them, roll them in some flour. This is stone ground flour. We don't have, only the rich people have the really, really high quality flour. We need to thread these onto some skewers, and those are going to go into a sort of a medium oven.
Yes.
And they're going to cook for about 15 or 20 minutes. In fact, we have here some that I've been working on, because this is a dish that takes a bit of time. So once we have the little balls like this, can you see they're starting to go, they're picking up a yellow colour.
Yes.
Now that's because what I'm actually doing is I'm taking them off the skewer every single time, and I'm actually dipping them into some egg yolk. So what we're going to do is colour them. You could probably put some saffron in those. You could put turmeric if you couldn't afford the saffron. While those are cooking, we're going to go on to the plum sauce. So, now obviously I have to bear in mind that medieval food is very, very seasonal. These aren't in season at the moment, but with modern supermarkets and things we can actually cheat just a little bit. Now if you're taking a good English damson or Victoria plum, all the sorts of things that would have been around in the time. I'm going to use a bit of wine in this in just a second. Although we have English wine, we're also using a lot of French wine. That's enough plums. Okay, a little bit of English wine, like I said. Just enough to sit the plums in. And something else that we did have a lot of in this country, but most of it, funnily enough, comes from Russia. A lot of it was imported from the Baltic Sea area, is honey. We're going to put a nice bit of honey in. Of course, the monks who've provided us with the wine today also had bees. Okay, so we now need to put that on the range, and we'll reduce this down about 15 minutes or so, nice and carefully. And after that, it needs to be strained. Now, otherwise you get all sorts of bits in it. So we pass that through a cloth. Okay, and here we have our pommes dorée, gilded pork rissoles with the plum and ginger sauce. Well, bread is actually the most important of all medieval foods. That's why it's in the Lord's Prayer, you know, give us this day our daily bread. But the second most important is the good old fish. Now, medieval people would eat any sort of fish, anything that came from the sea whatsoever. There are recipes for porpoise, dolphin, whales, all sorts of things. Oh. This is going to go into our fish soup, our fish stew. This is actually a conger eel. So we'll put him into a pot. Because I have to cook him first. I've got to get the skin off him because the skin will turn the whole thing grey. I'll put a bit of parsley in, some onions I've minced up, a nice bit of garlic. We'll put this onto the oven. Let's get him going there. And when he's cooked, he'll look like this. Now we just need to take the skin off. Unfortunately, conger eel is very bony. But like I said, if I don't take this skin off, the whole thing's going to look like wallpaper paste, which we don't want. I'm also going to add into our broth some other seafood. I've got some mussels here, fresh local mussels, okay? And if you're from sort of the North Kent coast or the East End of London, you're going to recognise these. This is the jellied eel, so again, this is a freshwater eel. So all of this is going to go into our broth. So let's put all that in there. Put some of that in. That is now going to reduce down a bit. When it's reduced down, we're going to put some of this in. We're going to put some breadcrumbs in. Very, very important. When we're actually serving up fish, any dish at all, we need a trencher. This is a loaf that's about 4 days old. Still a little bit soft in the middle, actually. And I'm going to make a plate out of it. I'm not going to throw any of this bread away. It's going to go to make breadcrumbs, which we're going to use to thicken up all sorts of things, sauces, anything like that. Okay, so that goes into our breadcrumbs. There we are. 2 little trenchers, and I'm going to serve food on that a bit later on, probably the fish.
Join us after the break for more medieval recipes and a hunt for the ghostly woman in white. Welcome back. Well, I've left Mark in the kitchen cooking, and I've come upstairs to Dr. Sin's bedchamber. The Mermaid Inn is well known for its hauntings, so we've invited an expert to sound out the place. Christopher Charles-Reimald, you call yourself a ghost investigator, so what does that mean?
Well, Jan, basically what it means is if someone feels a presence in a house, and they know where to get hold of me, obviously, they do, and I come round and first of all, I do some research. And then if I feel the presence, which I use this stick for, I do the tappings on the floor. And also, I have the scentings. And the scentings, for example, before the Boer War, for instance, people were so filthy that they used to actually cover themselves in, for example, lavender, or put lavender bags in it. And you can actually get the sense of this, the smell of it. Sometimes I don't get anything, sometimes I do. That's the way it works. But there's definitely a sense of something in this hotel. There has to be. It's 600 years old, you know.
Well, yes, the owner, Judith, was saying that she has seen what they call the White Lady in the corridor.
Well, I would prefer to call her the Grey Lady. Ghosts aren't white, but she's the Grey Lady. What she is she was a serving maid, a wench, or whatever you want to call them, about 1706 or 9, right? And she fell foul of the Hawkhurst gang, and they actually murdered her. And her ghost is often seen around here, in this room in particular, in a rocking chair. She used to rock in here, and it was so bad that the chair had to be removed by the owner because it was causing such unpleasantness. And I gather she's just put it in a garage at home and it's all stopped now. Oh. But that's the sort of thing, you know.
Did anything else happen in this room?
Yes, there was something else in this room, without a doubt. There was a terrible duel in this room. And it was with doublet and hose, I know that. So it's going back quite a long way. And if I can just show you over here, out of interest. Now, this looks like a normal library bookcase, but it's not. As you'll see, it's a secret passage. And the winner of the duel threw the fellow that was killed all the way down there, that staircase, and they ended up, that leads to the back of the bar, right at the very back of the bar. Now, there's a terrible thing down there where the bottles are often knocked off the back of the bar. And it's just the anger and frustration of the ghost of the man who was killed.
Well, how's it going, Mark? What are you doing now?
I'm moving on to the next dish now, Jan. I've got a Poussin, a small baby chicken. I'm going to make Poussin agreduse, which in modern language is sweet and sour chicken, basically. So we'll put the Poussin into there. I'm going to add in just a few more bits of onion, a few more bits of leek, just to give it a little bit of flavour. Let me put a bit of red wine into there. A bit of red wine. Okay. Let me take that out of there.
That was one you cooked earlier, as they say.
One I've cooked earlier, indeed. What I've got to do now is just very, very quickly break him up, take the breast off. If I was making this dish for a top table, maybe I would leave it whole. I'd have one game bird in the centre of this whole sort of puree that I'm going to make. And that one will be carved for the lord, lady, whatever rich person was paying for the dish, because the art of the carver was all important. Not only did you have to make an appetising dish, it had to be served properly. And these people commanded large sums. You had roving carvers who would go around. Very often, if you're a good carver, you can afford a pretty good knife. If you're looking at the Duke of Burgundy, who was probably the richest man in Europe,
Yes.
his carving knife still exists in a museum, and it's covered in gold and jewels and emeralds. It's gilded. It's got a prayer around it, all sorts of different things. Okay, we have our Poussin in there. Now, a generous dollop of honey. I'm going to put into there a bit more pepper, a bit of vinegar. It's just ordinary household vinegar. And finally,
More plonk.
more wine. Okay, let's put that on there. Now then, we need something to give it a bit of temperature, a bit of fire. So I'm going to make a pepper sauce now. Main ingredient, pepper and breadcrumbs. Something to moisten it down. Finest organic ale. About the 15th century, about this time in fact, we're starting to get Dutch ale, which is actually beer. It's got hops in it. And there was a lot of complaints about this Dutch stuff is coming in, it's ruining the English ale trade. So let's put that on there to reduce down as well. And hopefully when the chicken's ready, the sauce will be ready as well.
And that's it?
That's it. Just leave it to reduce down and keep on testing it, keep on seasoning it to taste.
Have you got one you cooked earlier?
Yes, here it is. Poussin agreduse, that's sweet and sour chicken. And all that needs to go with that now is the pepper sauce, which I've had reducing down on here. So there it is. And that is very hot and spicy, but I can still smell the real ale coming through there as well. This is going to be a fig and ginger sauce. Now, it's not going to be served on its own. I'm going to make some medieval wafers. So a nice thick sauce to go with those wafers is what we need. So in here we've got some figs, just ordinary figs from your local supermarket. And I'm going to put in a tiny bit of ginger. Now, medieval people did not have fresh ginger. I'm going to cheat ever so slightly here because this is it's a sweeter taste. This is the sort of stuff that comes in sort of in a syrup. Medieval people had dried ginger, and I find it's a bit too bitter for my taste. So, and I want this to be a good sauce. Okay. The last thing I'm going to add to this is some mace. Now, not many people know what mace is. Mace is actually an outer membrane covering a nutmeg. So it's got a slightly nutmeggy flavour.
Is it stronger? Is it a very different taste?
No, it's a much milder taste. Again, I find nutmeg for this sort of dish very, very strong. So the mace is a better way of doing it. Okay, that's nice and ground up. And of course, like all good medieval dishes, I'm going to strain this and puree it and take all the bits and pieces out. Okay, into here, we're also going to put just a little bit of honey, and just to give it a little bit of liquid before it goes onto the pan, some white wine. And again, reduce that down nice and slowly. Don't need to hurry about that.
You have to reduce it. You use so much wine, you'd end up completely blotto.
That's it. And when it's finished, it's going to come out looking like that. And the only thing I've added to that now is a tiny bit of cream, just to make it a different consistency. So you can see it's nice and runny. For the wafers, we're going to use a couple of eggs, a little bit more of our stone ground flour. We'll give that a little whisk. Flour's there to give it a bit of a base, but what I'm actually going to thicken it with, really, is ground almonds. Now this is very expensive. This is going to be a very upper class dish, this is. And finally, just to give it a little bit of sweetness, as it's the last dish, let's put the last bit of my honey in. Now, if I was the 20th century person, I'd take it to my waffle iron or something like that. Electric powered, of course, but I've got something quite unusual, a bit better, which is this, which basically every home should have one. It's not a medieval torture device. It's actually a waffle or wafer iron. Okay, onto the fire that goes. Now this is made of wrought iron, so it absorbs the heat quite a lot. Okay, I've already greased this with a bit of ordinary vegetable oil. I mean, if I was using it at home, I'd use butter. It also adds to the flavour, obviously. But in medieval times, butter wasn't widely used for cooking at all. It was reserved for the young, or the very old and infirm, or the ill. So it was thought to have special healing properties. So let's put that on there. Okay. And now what we've got to do is just hope and pray that it doesn't stick. Let's see what we've got. Okay.
Oh, wow!
I think we can say that's a success.
Bravo.
And once we've served that with our figgy sauce as well, maybe put some sauce on and roll them up, anything like that. And that's your medieval feast for today, Jan.
Have either of you eaten medieval food before?
I haven't, no.
What do you think of it?
It's lovely. It's much different than I thought it would be.
It's subtle, isn't it?
Yes.
I ran a restaurant called the Taming of the Shrew many years ago in Beecham Place, and we had medieval food, but it consisted only of things like wild boar and hogshead, that sort of
That's
stuff.
what I was imagining it
Yes.
would be.
We shouldn't be eating, of course, with a knife and fork because forks wouldn't have come in. I think it would have been a
They used a
knife,
dagger.
and fingers. Yeah, your
Men-
knife and your fingers, finger bowl. But everything was served together. So you've tasted most things. Judith, what do you like best?
I think I like, definitely like pork. That's really nice, with the pot sauce as well.
It's delicious, isn't it? I like both the pork and the chicken, I must say. I'm always a bit risque, the fish, but I mean, it's interesting.
Yes,
but it's not quite me, I have to say.
I love fish, but I wouldn't
But this
eat
is
eel.
wonderful. It's quite a subtle taste, isn't it?
Yes.
Marvellous.
Well, fortunately, we didn't bump into any of the ghosts of the Hawkhurst gang. But I've had a lovely day here in Rye, finding out how they would have eaten 600 years ago at the Mermaid Inn in medieval times. If you're having a dinner party with the difference, why not try some of the recipes? They're great fun. See you again on another Cook Back in Time.